Hey everyone, Brayden here, coming to you with a breaking Disney news update regarding some just revealed changes to Disney's plan to overhaul the Muppets Courtyard at Disney's Hollywood Studios into a Monsters, Inc. themed land. Following the absolutely packed send-off Muppet Vision 3D received from fans on June 7th, the existing land closed to the public on June 8th, which coincided with Disney moving in their iconic "Don't look over here" rolling hedges blocking off the land. They didn't put up the big walls right away, as 2 days following the closure, Disney held a special event for cast members in the land, where Disney employees were treated to some special after-closure final showings of Muppet Vision 3D days following the final public viewing. The morning of June 11th, guests entered the area to find construction walls had finally gone up, marking the official, for real this time, end to the Muppets Courtyard area at Disney's Hollywood Studios, as park operations has now handed the area off to Walt Disney Imagineering and the contract teams that'll begin doing partial demolition in the land quite soon, prepping the area for Monsters, Inc., which itself has yet to receive an official opening timeframe. Nearby, eagle-eyed viewers were quick to spot some directional signage referencing Muppet Vision had been swapped for directions to the recently added Coca-Cola stand located right outside of the land on the Grand Avenue. However, due to some snafu, the new signage spells the name of the stand wrong, which should read Ice Cold Hydraulics. Much more newsworthy than that, though, is the art that was found posted on the construction wall outside of the Muppets Courtyard, a bird's eye view of how the courtyard will look once this land overhaul is complete, as you can see in this photo of the art Disney posted on the wall, captured by Blog Mickey. And you may be saying, wait a second, Brayden, haven't we seen this art before? Well, in January, this bird's eye view was posted on the Disney Parks blog. However, since January, or whenever that art was originally made, sometime in 2024, development work has progressed, and this brand new art posted on the construction wall outside the area differs from what we previously got in some pretty significant ways if you take a closer look and compare the 2024 concept art to the 2025 concept art, which is exactly what we are about to do. And I've also got some extra details, some rumors that we have been hearing from our sources to share with you as well that I think you will find very interesting. Getting up to speed on the Monsters, Inc. land coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, previously Disney announced a Monsters, Inc. themed vertical lift door factory suspended coaster was coming to the park. Disney later released this rough render video of the door factory coaster load area, where you can get an idea of what this attraction is going to be like. You're harnessed to a seat, then you're brought up in the air, and then the track lifting your train, it links up with the suspended track several stories up, which then sends you into the gravity building located behind the queue and load area, where the attraction itself will unfold. One thing right off the bat that I want to mention is I think that this is going to be very similar to Tron, runtime-wise. This is going to be a thrilling e-ticket attraction, but I personally think it is going to be quite short in duration. However, more so than Tron and especially Guardians, this one, our sources suggest, will feature some impressive new animatronics. I've also heard it'll feature three-dimensional set elements as well as mirrors for some reason, lots of mirrors in the ride, perhaps to work as a set extension effect to make the door factory feel infinite in size. None of this has been confirmed by Disney. It's all rumors, besides that super cool load area that we got to look at, as well as the concept model that we got at D23 last year. Point is, there are some promising signs with this coaster detail-wise, so I would say I'm looking forward to this one. I'm pretty optimistic about it. The other attraction in the land will be a new show heading inside the former Muppet Vision 3D space. And the only other official detail Disney has given us thus far is that there will be shops and dining in the land. Getting to the brand new updates to the concept art, big picture, comparing the 2024 concept art to the 2025 concept art, right away you'll notice the biggest change, which is that the Monsters, Inc. door factory attraction has been set back roughly 20 feet or so from the previous art, where now it clears the end of the former Muppets Courtyard area and that themed street. It clears that that area, which creates a space for a new promenade spanning a significant chunk of the entrance facade. Enhancing this new promenade area, the first thing I want to say is we did AI upscale the new and the old art to higher resolution. So if you notice any weird garbled text or artifacts when we really zoom in here, Disney didn't use AI. That's just us trying to find every detail possible and be able to zoom in as far as we can in this image, so disregard any of that. So to the right in this newly added promenade concept, you can barely make out what looks to be a parking lot for the Door Factory workers, with one car there in attendance. This could be a great spot to park some Monsters, Inc. themed cars in the land to really make it feel like a real workplace, like people are showing up to work at the Door Factory. The Monsters, Inc. ride in Tokyo Disneyland, which it appears the facade in our art is copying, that attraction also has some parking spots added out front. Nearby, in the back of the concept for the Orlando attraction entrance, we now also have a van that has been added that is parked out front of the factory, as well as what you can barely make out to be Mike Wazowski's new car from the 2002 Pixar short film taking place after the events of the original film, the presumed timeline this land is taking place inside of. On the left side of the promenade is another area that wasn't present in the earlier art at all, which appears to me to be a children's play area. Let me know what you guys think this is. It's just speculation right now, but given that this suspended coaster will come with a height requirement, Disney providing children with a place to play as their older siblings head into the Door Factory, I think that is a really good idea. In fact, in an older piece of art that we got at D23 last August, you'll notice that there is a Sully-themed slide located right in the same spot in relation to the attraction building. However, in the new art, this area is covered with triangular tarps, shade coverings. The way it looks to me just makes it seem like a playground area. Heading away from the e-ticket back all the way to the front entrance to the courtyard, there are a lot of changes to get to. First, way out on the Grand Avenue, parked cars previously featured in the art along the Grand Avenue outside the entrance to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, those have been removed from the concept. Comparing the entrances themselves, in the 2024 concept art, the entrance is an archway, and in the updated art, the archway has been removed, but the columns for it have stayed, the themed columns to each side. This could definitely be some value engineering we're seeing as the project gets closer and closer to something that is finalized and funded and drafted and all of that. However, this themed column to each side format, it reminds me a bit of another area where Disney pulled this off really well a long time ago, that being the entrance to Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom. These columns remind me of that a bit. Point is, they can definitely make this into a cool entrance, archway or not. Heading into the land, in the 2024 concept, you'd be greeted by what looked to be a marble eyeball, possibly a water feature as well with some sort of laminar flow going over the eyeball. A little bit freaky, safe to say. The brand new art goes a completely different direction, changing that fountain to a larger fountain that looks to be identical in size and placement to the existing Muppets Courtyard fountain, which I think is a big upgrade here. Miss Piggy is definitely not staying in this version, but it does appear that some version of the existing fountain, something familiar, certainly looks to be what we are going to be getting here with the Monsters, Inc. land, adding kinetics to the land entrance area. Taking a look at the former Muppet Vision 3D building, one of the most noticeable changes between the old art and the new art is that, for one, the colors have been changed on this building from blue to green. Also, the Muppets Tower now looks even more Monsters themed, and the theater name on the sign has changed from the Monstro to the Glob. And some Muppets fans online are saying, really, Disney, you're replacing Jim Henson's legacy with the Glob? One rumor I've heard for this attraction I mentioned in our Muppets Farewell video a few days ago is this may be a derivation on the Monsters, Inc. laugh floor. It's not going to be the Monsters, Inc. laugh floor, but it's going to be a similar format featuring Mike Wazowski possibly hosting a late-night TV broadcast. The change in color on the facade and the name itself all hint at the spherical one-eyed character, which I have heard will be the star of the show here, much like the laugh floor. However, some online have noticed, they have pointed out the theater name here being one letter off from the Globe Theater, one of the most famous theaters of all time. So perhaps it's a little bit of a play on words there, and maybe it could be hinting at a new show that is far more cultured than the laugh floor late night TV show that I was hearing about. So we will see. I'm personally choosing not to get my hopes up too high on this one. I'm prepared for this to be nothing anywhere close to Muppet Vision 3D, which is one of the all-time best shows that we've ever had at a Disney park. And if by some minor miracle this show turns out good, hey, being pleasantly surprised is a lot better than over-expecting, going to the attraction, and then walking away disappointed. One piece of value engineering, a budget cut that is definitely visible in the updated art, can be found over at the land restrooms, where in the 2024 concept art, Gonzo's Royal Flush was set to get a monstrous new facade, a facade overhaul, and in the new art, it looks very similar to how the building already looks. Another small change, in the previous art, the Pizza Rizzo neon sign location over the outdoor dining area on that counter service restaurant, it was swapped to a Monsters billboard. In the new art, that billboard has now been removed. The center square that you have here in the new land, it'll be created by completely demolishing the existing Studio One gift shop that you have in Muppets Courtyard. So insofar as the demolition I was talking about, the partial demolition work about to get underway in the land, keep an eye out for Disney tearing down that center building, as that is the piece of the Muppets area that they are going to be completely ripping out, the big one that they are going to be tearing down to create this treed outdoor plaza area, which looks quite nice actually. In the middle, it looks like there's going to be some sort of covered food or merchandise stand replacing the Studio One gift shop. And in another piece of art that we got last year, it hints at guests perhaps being able to meet the Monsters, Inc. characters in that area. The craziest thing with this new land is that I have a hard time even calling it a new land because not a whole lot of it is actually new. They're putting a new attraction at the end of the dead end to pull guests down into that courtyard. I think the crucial mistake with Muppets Courtyard was there was just nothing past Muppet Vision 3D. So unless you were intentionally going to Muppet Vision 3D, there really was no reason to turn off of the Grand Avenue and go over there. And I think that this has to do with a major master planning mistake that Disney made when they put in Galaxy's Edge, where it was less about figuring out the best way to do crowd flow. It was more about how do we match up the land with the clone that is in Disneyland. The way Disney reshaped everything when they got rid of the back lot and the Osborne lights, the Streets of America, all of that, it left a lot of weird vestiges that don't really make sense. Some of the strangest areas at any Disney parks are currently in Disney's Hollywood Studios as a result of the Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land expansions. For example, that Pixar Place area where you used to have all the cool Pixar stuff and the lamp that would come out of the wall and the entrance to Toy Story Midway Mania, now it's a strange special event street that leads nowhere. And in many ways, that's how the Muppet Courtyard became too. So I think that is why Disney is trying this new theme where they're putting a big coaster at the very end of the dead end, really pulling guests into the land where they will have to walk past the show and the other amenities in the land to get back to the coaster, which will in turn increase foot traffic at every single thing along the way. So as I was saying, what's crazy is so much of the existing land is staying, so much of the existing infrastructure. You may notice in this art that Pizza Rizzo's, the counter service building, its seating, its building, its kitchen, it looks like it is all staying. It's just going to be getting a retheme. Same with Mama Melrose's, the sit-down restaurant. It looks like its whole setup, its building, its kitchens, all that is staying. It's just getting a partially updated facade and a retheme. It looks like it is going to become the Japanese restaurant from the 2001 film by the looks of it. And even the Christmas shop is sticking around in a way, although the theme of that shop will likely be completely changing as well. The change here, comparing the 2024 concept art to the 2025 concept art, is that the facade of the former Christmas shop, it looked like they had plans to do something completely different with it. Now it looks a lot more like how it currently does, except they have repainted it bit to make it look more cartoony. Other than that, not many changes to see in this part of the art between last year's plan and this year's plan. One change I've yet to mention is that the monster car that is featured in the guest level view concept art that we got last August, visible parked outside of the Muppet Vision Theater in the previous bird's eye art, that has now vanished in the new art. And I am really hoping Disney follows through on fabricating some really cool Monsters Inc. cars that are placed throughout the land or parked in a parking lot near the entrance to the attraction. I really think that would be really, really cool. Also weird is if you look over by the Muppet Vision 3D area, there's a covered area, there's a covered structure that can be used for queue overflow or to park stands under. That has also disappeared in the latest concept art. One final note with this art I made reference to earlier, the Door Factory coaster, as it is rendered here in this bird's eye art, is not exactly what we are actually going to be getting. It looks like what they did here in this art is they took mostly from a Google Maps 3D view of the Door Factory facade you already have with the Monsters Inc. attraction out in Tokyo Disneyland. They did modify it a little bit. They added in those triangular skylights in the front, and this is fine for concept art because this bird's eye art is really just showing where things are going to be placed. But just keep in mind, this being a high up, multi-story suspended coaster, this attraction is going to be a giant gravity building. And the facade is going to be right up against that large volume, that rectangular building, which is very different than what you have with the attraction out in Tokyo, where theirs is a single level dark ride. My concern here that I mentioned in our D23 coverage last August when this was all announced is that in the model for Walt Disney World's Door Factory attraction, this isn't exactly to scale, you can tell it's a concept model, but you can see a rough layout of what our facade is going to look like on our version in Florida. And it does look really, really cool, but you'll note that flanking each side of the main facade element there, almost as tall as the tallest part of the facade, is a show building that is rendered in plexiglass, which is not how it's going to be in real life. That is not going to be transparent unless Disney is going to be inventing some all new materials. Maybe Imagineering has some transparent steel that they're inventing, who knows? But more seriously, what are they going to do here? Are they going to paint it sky blue like Guardians? I hope they don't do that. Are they going to try to paint it varying shades of blue like Epic Universe did with that building in How to Train Your Dragon? I hope they don't do that either. Are they going to do a flat painting on it like at Ratatouille in Epcot? What I really hope we get here, and it actually is in that model, just not the latest art, is the addition of a bunch of those factory-looking towers, those smokestacks and water towers and chemical towers, three-dimensional facade elements that are pretty tall that'll help break up the gravity building and make it invisible to guests from inside the land. Perhaps to each side of the main facade element there, the main part of the Door Factory, you have a bunch of three-dimensional towers, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then on the gravity building itself, you do a matte painting where there's even more towers going off into the distance, rendering the ride building almost invisible. Pull out the Imagineering handbook and find the best way to really make this thing something that guests don't notice. I think the D23 model is a lot more representative of the facade that we're going to see built versus what you see in this latest concept art, which seems to be more of a stand-in using Tokyo's attraction, which is completely different versus what this will actually look like when it is done here at Walt Disney World. There's going to be a big building right there, so it'll be interesting to see how this all comes together. Be sure to subscribe with those notifications on to stay up to date on the latest Disney news. Brayden, isn't there another huge project coming to Walt Disney World that you should have some reports on, that you should have some thoughts on? Yes, I apologize for the delay. I am working on it. Stay tuned. From the Mickey V's Magic Studio, this is Brayden. Have a magical day.